Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for this Support Revolution webinar on how we fix issues. My name is Dan Griffin, I'm Support Revolution's Head of Marketing. I'll be leading the technical side of this webinar today, so if you have any questions around audio or how to connect, just send me a message in the chat window and I'll get back to you privately. At the same time, if you have questions that you want to ask our main speaker, send me that via a chat and I'll make sure at the end of the presentation when we get to the Q&A session that I put those to him. So everything you can do through the chat box. With me today is Kiran Gorajala, our Chief Information Officer. Kiran joined our team in 2015 and is responsible for service delivery, quality of service and information security at Support Revolution. With over 20 years of experience in the industry, Kiran is primarily placed to be able to talk today about this topic. But before we go on to that, just a quick bit of background on us. So Support Revolution is a third-party support provider for Oracle and SAP. We've got customers across the globe and have been operating it for just over 20 years. Our main mission is to cut your Oracle and SAP support costs in half and free you from unwanted upgrades, because we essentially provide support for any version and any customizations of Oracle and SAP software. We saved our customers over 63% on average annually last year. So we are a primary place to be able to help and support you. But without further ado, I will pass over to Kiran, who is going to talk about how we actually do our business and how we provide fixes. Kiran.
So first of all, what we'll be covering today is, so obviously we've covered the introduction. We'll just briefly cover off what is a fix. How do we actually apply these patches and fixes, and any examples, the incident management process, and then what makes our approach different. And then if there are any questions and answers at the end, I'll cover those as well. So we'll just start with the details first, and then I'll zoom out to cover out the whole process. Okay. So first of all, what is a fix? And why are we here to talk about it essentially as well? So when I talk to customers, and I talk to customers a lot, the number of times I've heard how long they've had to wait on an open incident from Oracle and SAP is quite astonishing. So from an incident management perspective and from a fix resolution perspective, that shouldn't be the case. So we're here to talk about this because a lot of customers and the market seems to have forgotten about these basics. There's three key basics. You should always expect a timely and effective resolution to your instance. You should always expect a support partner to have a clear and transparent process, and you should always expect to have value-added services. It's not just about providing a fix, it's what else can be offered, essentially. There are three types of fixes in our world. First one, business as usual. Second one, legislative type fixes. And the third one, security. First one, business as usual. These are just really also known as break fixes. Okay. And are basically fixes to enable your current processes and systems to continually operate. Okay, so there may be been a performance issue, or a report doesn't work, or an interface is broken. These are all types of things that are known as a break fix. As an example, there was one of our customers had some custom code that performed a punch out to an external supply site, but the code was quite old, and the platform it was deployed onto was also quite old, so it wasn't able to communicate with the supplier's modern SSL ciphers, and therefore couldn't establish that connection. So it was essentially broken over time. So we've had to provide a fix to resolve that connection problem, and that was provided as a BAU fix. Second type of fix is the legislation type fixes. So these are legal and regulatory changes that are generally to do with payroll or tax that government bodies introduce. And these are generally linked to fiscal changes as part of budget statements. How do we deliver these types of fixes and monitor these fixes and identify these changes? So we are registered with these local government bodies as a software developer, just like Oracle and SAP. So as soon as those local government bodies release information about these legislation changes, we are aware of them straight away at the same time as Oracle and SAP. And at that point, we start developing those fixes. The way we approach it is we have a project management approach. We treat this as a project. So there is a start date, obviously, which is when the legislation details is provided, and the end date is obviously when the legislation needs to go live. So that in itself creates a timeline, which we therefore treat as a project, and we work with you as the customer to ensure that we take into account any customizations and configurations that you have in your system to make sure that the legal changes are specific to your environment. As an example, in the UK, a current change that is going on is called Making Tax Digital, where customers have to provide their tax returns, their VAT returns online, just like an RTI type submission, and we're working with our customers to provide this. As an example of how the vendors are doing this, Oracle is not providing a solution, and SAP use a third-party system to provide this. And finally, the third type of fix is the security patching fix. So when you're receiving your security fixes from Oracle or SAP, so from an Oracle perspective, these are released quarterly with maybe an ad hoc one for critical security fixes. For SAP, these are received monthly. So the problem with both of these approaches is the fact that they are time-bound or they are time-tabled. So based on that timetable, whether it's monthly or quarterly, you're then exposed either monthly or quarterly till the next patch is then released. And then you also have to consider the amount of time it takes to apply that patch into your production system. Because when you have that patch, it has to go through dev, QA, test, prod. So that could take 2 to 6 months in some customer environments. That's quite a traditional and an old way of approaching security patching, and it definitely leaves you vulnerable. Our approach is superior. We use Trend Micro Deep Security, which applies virtual patches at the network layer, and it requires no downtime. It's fast, it's rule-based, it's a network-wide security, but the key thing to this is it provides you with immediate security. You don't have to wait for next month, you don't have to wait for next quarter, you get that fix straight away. Okay. So just moving into a bit more detail around these three areas. So we have these three types of fixes, but how do we actually apply a patch and fix into your environment? There is actually a process that we follow. So the process is, and you can see this on the right, is we have incident resolution first of all, which is obviously trying to understand what the issue is to come up with that solution. We then have to develop that solution and then document that solution. We then have to patch that solution and then deploy it. So there's 4 steps in that area. If we then just talk about the incident resolution, so the key to resolving an incident is understanding the root cause of the incident. If you do not understand the root cause of the incident, what will then generally happen is an incident is raised, it's then fixed, you think it's fixed, but then the same issue happens again. And the problem with that approach is it generates a negative customer behavior of the vendor, and the customer is naturally going to think, well, you haven't fixed it because it's happened more than once. So this is why getting to the root cause is very important, because if you get to the root cause, you'll then ensure that it doesn't happen again. Once we've understood what the root cause is, we'll then be able to determine what the fix is. When we determine what the fix is, we will then check within your archive to determine whether that patch is available. So when I refer to your archive, as part of transitioning over to Support Revolution, what we would do is download all of the patches that you're entitled to up to your renewal point with Oracle and SAP. Okay, and that is called your patch archive. So we would check that archive to determine whether the patch is available or a fix is available. If it is available, we would then investigate further, what is it actually fixing? Okay, so the ideal scenario is it's only fixing that particular issue, and in that scenario we would then recommend applying that patch. However, the scenario might be that the patch that is in the archive also fixes 3 or 4 other items. But you don't have those issues, those 3 or 4 other items. So in that scenario, we would not recommend applying that patch. And we would then go down the route of developing our own solution. And our own solution can consist of a number of options. It might be a configuration change, a parameters change, it might be a piece of technical code, a wrapper solution. Essentially, there are more than one ways to fix that solution, but the key is it's fixing that root cause. Once we've provided that solution, the only thing that's required from yourself is really to apply our patch once it's ready and then test it on your systems. Okay, all of the work is done through ourselves. Moving on to the development side of things and the documentation standards. All the existing code base is maintained, so you can always upgrade in the future. And the reason we're able to do this is because we follow Oracle and SAP development standards. So you can always go back to Oracle and SAP at any point, and the code that we have applied will not be affected, and standard code is also not affected. Now, when we develop to Oracle and SAP standards, we also maintain quality and information security standards. So ISO 9001 for quality and ISO 27001 for information security. This is very important because it has to pass strict quality control internally, but also it has to pass our security testing internally as well to make sure that there's no breaches that are provided within those patches. There's documentation that is maintained for all of these fixes, both internally, but also documentation that's provided to yourself as a customer. So what is in the patch? Okay, how do you apply the patch? And as part of our robust governance, we provide and we deliver pre and post implementation checks. When it comes to then applying the patch and the fix into your environment, we will follow your change management process, because obviously yourselves as the customer have access to your production instances, and you have a process that you may need to follow, which may involve applying the patch into a pre-prod or a test environment before it goes into production. All of that is governed through your change management process, and we will follow that. We will also support you with any documentation that's needed for that change management process. Moving on to the patch process. So as part of the patch process, we will test the patches ourselves. So in the first instance, we will test that on our own instance. Now, a lot of our customers provide us with access to their own environments as well as part of the service. And this is really great because we can then obviously test the patch that we have developed or identified against the customer test instance. And the reason why this is great is because obviously we support customizations. And if we're able to do this test on your own instance, it then enables us to check that customizations linked to that fix are not broken, as well as standard code still not being broken. Okay, so it just reduces the testing cycle and also the QA process from your side. The patches then will then go through the standard process of being applied to a development, test, pre-prod, and production as per your change management process, which I mentioned earlier. And we will always expect acceptance certificates to be completed to confirm that the patch has been successful and promoted to production. Okay. And finally, our release process. How do we manage code changes? So for example, while we're going through the development standards and the QA process internally, there's obviously going to be changes to code. So how do we make sure that the right version of that code is then deployed or packaged up to be issued to that customer? So internally, we use a source control system called Support Revolution, Apache Subversion, to manage all of our version control and code control for all fixes to environments. So we know what code has been applied to what environment at any point in time. The technical team internally here use Tortoise SVN as the customer interface to check in and check out code from the Apache Subversion repository. Okay. So if I now then just take a moment to zoom out, because I've explained how fixes are developed and I've taken you through that sort of process, but then how does this work in a total incident management process? So if I could just walk you through that now over the next few slides. So first of all, logging an incident is the primary step. That's done by basically emailing us, or you can telephone us, or go through the portal. Majority of our customers email, and then also telephone us if there are priority incidents. Once an incident is raised with us, it's then triaged. It's triaged through the service desk team, and as part of that triage process, you will receive an automated response back confirming that an incident has been created with that incident's number. Now, once that automated email is generated, that does not trigger off an SLA. The SLA is triggered off by human interaction. Our team interact with yourselves to confirm the priority of the incident. And the priority of the incident is assessed based on ITIL, which is assessing the impact and urgency of the incident. So if it's high and high, then it would be a P1, for example. Okay. Once that priority has been confirmed by yourself, the incident is then assigned to a consultant to work on, and that's the ownership side of things. So an incident will always be owned by that single consultant, and we appreciate that sometimes an incident can cover many different areas. So, for example, if you take a performance issue might be such that accessing the application is very slow, or running a report is very slow. All right, so that's through the application. But then actually to investigate that, we then might find actually it's nothing to do with the application, it's actually to do with the middleware, or it might be actually the database. So we have to engage those teams. We will not say to you, this incident has now been assigned to the middleware team or the database team. That consultant will work with the other teams to ensure that we receive their input to resolution of that incident, and all communication will be done through that single consultant. Okay. Updates to the customers, as well as from customers, is obviously key to make sure that we're tracking progress of the incident and making sure that we resolve the incident. If I flip it the other way, if you had raised an incident with us and there was no updates, what would you naturally think? You'd think, what's going on? All right, what's happening with my incident? Is anything happening? And then you have to chase us. That's not what you're paying a service provider for. The service provider should be providing proactive support, which is what we do. So we always ensure that there are regular updates on the incidents. We aim for within 24 hours, and all updates are done through consultants. Okay. Once we believe we provided a resolution and a fix has been applied to production and you're happy, we will seek approval from yourself before closing the incident. We don't automatically close an incident without your approval. Now, finally, to support all of the incident management process, the key to this is communication and really working in partnership with you. Service only works well, and a high quality of service can only be delivered if there's regular communication between both parties. All right. So we take this very seriously at Support Revolution, and the way we do this is through a number of means. So first of all, we provide you with regular reporting on a monthly basis to tell you what has happened in that month, but not just simply displaying you graphs of data that is available in our service desk system, but to explain what is happening with that data. So we'll provide you with trend analysis. You know, you've certainly had a spike in incidents this month. Why is that compared to your normal average that you raise every month? We'll also try and understand if there's been any spikes or decreases based on previous years, if you've been with us over a multi-year contract. All of this information is available through our service desk system, which is called Remedy4, and it's real time, it's 24/7, and you can access that, as I said, at any time, and it's the basis of our reporting to you. We also have a number of meetings with different levels of people within our organization. Starting off at the weekly level, we have partnership meetings between our service desk team and your team to basically assess where we are with incidents. Are the priorities okay? Has anything changed from your side? But also to discuss any change or enhancements or maintenance that is going on in your areas and your environments, because we can then plan for that. We can then plan for those maintenance windows, because that might just generally raise a spike in incidents once that maintenance window has completed, for example. There's monthly review meetings as well to examine and discuss the performance of the service. And all of these meetings can be on site or at your location at any time. The key to this is we work in partnership with you, and we want to understand what your environment, what changes are going on, so that we can provide the proactive support to you. Okay. So just to end the session, just to summarize, I guess, why choose us over anybody else? The key to it, the first one, is first-time fixes. We pride ourselves on understanding what the root cause is, and that enables us to give you a first-time fix because we understand the root cause. We don't provide generic patches. The patches are specific to your environment, because remember, we provide and support for your customization. So in order to provide support to customizations, we have to provide fixes that will support the customization as well as the standard code, so it's not a generic patch. SLAs are transparent. Okay, you do not get that with the vendors. You get that with us, both on response and resolution, and we back it up with service credits, where we will pay you money back based on any non-compliance of an SLA. All of the SLAs are available in our system through transparent and regular reporting, okay, through our Remedy Force service desk system. And finally, you'll have a dedicated point of contact as the account manager throughout the process and the service.
Brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for that, Kiran. Going through, we've had a few questions emailed into us beforehand, and there's been a few questions sent to me through the chat. So we'll just go through, in the time that we've got left, we'll go through a few of those. So the first question we got through via email, which was, do we still get security patches from Oracle and SAP with Support Revolution?
No, you don't. So once you move over to Support Revolution, you don't get any patches anymore from Oracle or SAP. Obviously, you will have the latest security patches downloaded in your patch archive up to the point of your renewal, but anything further than that, you would not have entitlement to. Our security solution is Trend Micro Deep Security, which provides you with an immediate virtual patch protection.
Fair enough. And the follow-up question was, do you provide fixes for upgrades as well?
Yes, we do. So remember, we provide product support. So it doesn't matter if the product is in production or in development. So in the answer to the upgrade, yes, we do provide fixes.
Okay. And I think you may have answered this one earlier, but another question we got through was, what happens if we go back to SAP or Oracle in the future? Does our fixes and patches interfere with that?
No, it doesn't. Not at all. You can go back to SAP and Oracle at any time. As I mentioned earlier, we follow their development standards, which are quite strict. So we do protect the integrity of the environment and the code, so that you can go back to Oracle and SAP. And we have helped customers do that through the process as well.
Another question we got through was, do we ever contact Oracle or SAP to provide a fix?
No, we don't. No, we don't. So the whole point of customers moving away from Oracle and SAP to us is that we replace Oracle and SAP vendor support. So we are the independent provider, and we do not contact Oracle or SAP for any help at all.
Fair enough. And the final question was, if you're waiting on Oracle or SAP for legislative patches, how are you competing with them? So I assume that means, do we wait on Oracle or SAP for their legislative patches before we move ahead?
Right. Okay. No, we do not. That would be illegal. That approach, and also it would mean we couldn't deliver the legislation fixes in time to meet the legislation deadlines. So we are registered with the local government bodies, just like Oracle and SAP, as a software vendor. So we receive the same information they do. So when those local government bodies announce a legislation change, we receive the same information as they do, and we start producing a fix of our own accord from that point on.
Brilliant. Okay, I think that's all the questions we've got through so far. If you do have any other questions, please do send us an email. Moving on to this next slide. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see we've got two things. We've got further resources. So what we've done is I've put in links there to our FAQs document. So that's all of the frequently asked questions that we tend to get and their answers. But I've also put in two links to some white papers as well. One on security and how we handle security and more information on our trend microsystem. And the other white paper is on payroll patching. So a specific white paper talking about how we deal with those legislative patches. And then at the bottom, we've got two more links. So I mentioned earlier in the start of this webinar that we saved our customers an average of 63% on their average annual support bill. If you fill in the form after that link, supportrevolution.com/savings, it'll automatically tell you, give you an estimate of how much we think we can save you and your organization. But if you do have any more questions, at the bottom there is our general inquiries email. If you reference this webinar in that email, it'll be sent to myself and Kiran, and we'll make sure that we get back to you with an answer as soon as possible. So that's it from us. Thank you very much, Kiran, and thank you very much, everyone, for taking the time today to join the call.